Yeah, my name is Victor Drover, as you heard. Born and raised in Canada, moved to the US in 2002, and I live north of Chicago outside of one of the major cities in the country called Milwaukee. And I'm a trained biochemist. I was a professor at the university here when we first moved. Actually, we moved to New York first. We moved to Wisconsin here. I was a professor at the university. We have a medical school where my wife still works. And while I was in college, they call it college here, but I mean university. I think I spent 13 years in university. And during that time, I was doing lots of sports things. And the short story is I needed a website for my sports club and decided after I think I used PHP Nuke and then Mambo and then Joomla, of course. And we were using the old EXTCal script. Basically, it was a port from another system to put our calendars on our Joomla website or our Mambo website at the time. And Yannick is in the room. He helped me with this back in the day, by the way. We're going way, way back now. And it wasn't being maintained, and then a bunch of security issues came out, and no one was really applying these. And I have my own private little, TextMate repo, TextMate-based repo for adding fixes and security fixes to this EXTCal program. Eventually released it, rebranded it as JCal Pro under the GPL. Started selling it. Maybe a year later, Yannick was helping me develop it. And we worked together on SH404 Ceph for a long time. And essentially, both of us, myself and Yannick, had completely separate professional careers and got enough success in Joomla to be able to retire from that and go to Joomla full time. And so from the product side, eventually moved to the services side. My co-founders for Watchful had a standalone script for managing their sites for their agency, and we decided to convert it to a SaaS service. So it's kind of been a slow migration where my professional career was high and the software was low. And when the software got high, I retired from the academic, and that kind of repeated itself when the product side started to slip. The calendars, the SEO software, we started going into services. And so that's where we are now. We're investing in a few other startups, but mostly, my primary job is managing and running and writing for Watchful. Does that about cover it, you think? I think if I had to summarize it in one sentence, I think JCal Pro was the first commercial GPL software for Joomla. I think. Someone else has told me that, so I'm not sure how accurate it is or if there are even records, but when I need to give that in an elevator, that's usually what I say. And so, as they say, the rest is history. Okay, let's go back to the demo. I've got a bunch of, I volunteer on the JED and for the board at OSM and stuff, but that's all the boring stuff. I'll move on to. Well, I certainly have done my fair share of volunteering for the project. That's been very, very rewarding. But you can certainly get burned out. So this happens to me in my sports volunteering too. The reward in a volunteer project for being effective is more work, and so it leads to burnout very quickly. So you have to be very careful, I think, if you're going to be doing a lot of that work. And we've seen lots of burnout in the Joomla project and in other kind of open source projects too. Okay, well, thank you. And as you heard, we're going to do a demo, a kind of a live demo, if you will, of Watchful. I'm using a real account and real websites to do this, but they're not real accounts. These aren't production websites. They're all on our demo server. And we had that set up to reset it at any time so we can quickly do testing, automated testing, rollbacks, kind of all kinds of things that when you're running a service like this, you need a lot of testing websites and a lot of testing environments. So we have that set up. I won't really show that. That's in the background, but you will see some of that today. You'll probably see a couple of secret keys. Go ahead and use those as you like. I'll be changing them after the call, so no worries there. All right, so as you heard, Watchful is a website maintenance tool. We support Joomla and Watchful. Many of our customers, especially ones using lots of Joomla sites, also have at least one or a handful of WordPress sites. On average, our customers manage about 15 or 16 sites per account in our platform, but we have everything from a single site. And there is some benefit to using Watchful with a single site, although it's not a lot. And then we have people use with 2, 3, 4,000 sites that they manage here on our dashboard. Okay, so as I said, we were longtime Joomla users from before Joomla existed. Lots of experience in the community. Most people know or have heard of JCal Pro and certainly Watchful. We dropped the LI part. It was supposed to be a clever name. It used to be watchful.li. So we dropped that because most people thought it was Watchfully, Watchful. It was confusing and too clever, and a TLD in Liechtenstein really didn't play very well in, say, Chicago. Or even with PayPal, they wouldn't even approve our account at first. They didn't believe we were a real company. So a few years back, we switched to watchful.net. So we just usually say Watchful. And like I said, it's a dashboard for managing your sites. And I'll show you that here in a moment. I'm not going to get too deep into how you use it, but essentially we have a connector. We call it a client that you install on your Joomla website, and it installs like any other website, any other extension. You can do it from the store or from a download, pretty straightforward. And once you've installed it, you get this screen, and it's got a secret key that is part of our authentication to make sure you have a safe communication from your remote site to our platform, because obviously we want that connection to be secure. And if you just click this Watchful button and you're logged into your free Watchful account, then your site will pop up in the Watchful dashboard. And that's the next thing I'm going to show you, which is right here. And before I proceed, I just want to make sure that it looks okay and the quality is fine. We're good?
Yeah, we're all good. Looks great, thanks.
Okay, great. So this is the kind of default interface. This is it's been this way for many years. It's gone through various forms, but essentially it's a table of your sites. And we have, I think, 20-something sites listed here, 16 Joomla sites. And we have various informations about the site. What's the date of the last backup? Is the backup stale or fresh? I'll talk about that a little more later. How many updates are pending? So you can see like this About Me site has 8 pending sites. We support, as I said, WordPress also. I've filtered this for Joomla just to have the Joomla sites. Tagging is a simple tool for organizing. So say I've got a bunch of people on a platinum care plan. I can just sort out my table quickly for those users. Maybe it's the week that I do my platinum maintenance, for example. People use these in all kinds of creative ways. So the examples we're giving here are, okay, we've got a support technician named John. These are his sites, so he can easily filter this and just focus on what he's doing. Maybe I want to see which ones are backing up at 3 a.m. So there are various things you can use it for. And we, of course, encourage people to be creative about the tagging just to help them organize what they're doing. We've got the core version and whether or not it's up. And all of these are filterable and sortable. I can sort, for example, by the date of last backup. This was important if I want to do maintenance, because if I have out-of-date backups, I probably want to take care of that before I start doing updates or installations or anything else on the site. And so all of the tools generally are focused on helping people get to things quickly, the urgent maintenance tasks quickly. Of course, people have different needs for different sites. You see a bunch of sites don't have tags, so it looks a little funky, but what's really important is that some people want just very different information. And we have a configure option on this screen, and you can control exactly what it is that you can see and what's important to you. So some people, the site name is the only column that you are required to have, but maybe you have a different backup solution and you don't care about backups at all. And if you only have Joomla sites, you don't need the CMS selector. And maybe you don't use tags. So you can get rid of all that information. Maybe instead you're concerned, you want to know what the PHP version is. And maybe you want a link to go to the website quickly. And I guess this is probably the PHP server version. So if I click Save now, you're going to see that all this information changes. And now I've got a custom interface, and I can have this as clean or as complicated as I want. And again, you can, if I wanted to say what Apache version am I using, 2.4.46, then I can sort by that. Am I using core version 4? Then I can just immediately, all I'm doing is hitting the number. I don't have to hit anything. It's a kind of a live JavaScript Angular application actually, but it people use our filters and our search tools here quite frequently to get at what they want. And you can see here the links to those front and back ends. So that's the organization of our basic dashboard. And there's a few configuration options. And if I just open one of these sites for you to look at, we call this the site drawer. So this is the site list. And then if you click here, it opens this drawer. Everything else just comes down here below it and shifts down. And so we got 3 areas. We have our tools, we have our information, and then our site details. And I can quickly walk you through a few of these. A lot of them are accessible in 2 other places. This left-hand menu, which I've collapsed right now and reloaded the page on accident there. So these are the different tools we have, but there are also tools across the top that allow me to do bulk actions. So say I know that this site and this site require me to install a new program, I can click them and click the installer button. So remember these names: About Me, well, let's make them memorable, and Joomla.org. Oh, yeah, that's great. If I click installer, you see it's filtered now for just these 2 sites. I can upload a file and install them all. For instance, if I was to select a new version of Watchful, this could be any script. Well, that's the WordPress version. We don't want that. If I was to select that, I could just in one click install these on these 2 sites. Okay. Okay, I'm going to run back to the sites dashboard here. If we're in the drawer, we've got the installer, the updater, which works the same way. If I click this, I'm going to see the list of updates that are available for this site only. Okay, and you can see I've got a core update, some extensions, and it's showing me that I've got an auto update also configured on this site for Akiba. And we'll talk about automatic updates a little later. I know it's a touchy issue, or in the Joomla side. Actually, it's for WordPress also. Don't think that WordPress users are auto updating. I think mostly they're not. People generally are hesitant to auto update, but it's where we're going at Watchful and probably in most software projects. So we've leaned into that, and we'll talk more about that a little later. We've got a basic malware scan. This is not a deep scan. This is something we get with Sakuri. And so we can do some front end checking for common malwares and checking if there's any blacklists for any of these sites, which is super important, of course, whether or not you're blacklisted. A basic SEO audit, which we can run, and a vulnerability scan, which is a deeper scan that looks for a subset of, and I won't let this finish, but you'll see each of these areas start to get fleshed out as we let the site audit continue. Are you using the right best practices? Most of the Joomla users here probably know what those things are. Are the core files the right checksums? You know, or have there been any core hacks, for example? Are the permissions correct? And have we detected any malware scanner? I wouldn't say that we've leaned into the malware side. It is a deep scan, but we don't have a comprehensive library of signatures. We also don't provide mitigation tools. That's not the target audience for Watchful. It's definitely more, if you found something, you might be able to take care of it. But our thought is you might want an expert if you're finding tons and tons of malware. That's not where we're heading. So that'll just run in the background, and we can come back to that as we need to. The other items here, I'll just quickly show you the edit screen because there's a few interesting items that you'll see just as part of the edit. Now, this gets populated. If you remember when we did installation, we click Add Site. Most of this information gets populated for you: the name, the secret key, the URLs. You can customize the admin URL. Maybe you have a renamed URL, or maybe you have an htaccess to access, so that you can see your htaccess credentials you can place in here if you've got a private site, or maybe a site on a LAN or something. Here's where you specify which tags you want, and you can just add them the way you would normally add any tag. And the other thing that people do here mostly is set up their backup details. So which backup extension are you using? Well, we know what that is for Joomla. Of course, there's only one. Which profile are you using? The secret key, and then what backup schedule do you like? Daily, weekly, monthly? the time, and in this case, which day of the month. If it was weekly, it'd be which week of the month, etc. The final item, and I'll just give you a highlight here, is something we call the stale backup warning. So if you have your backup set up, then Watchful becomes backup aware. So it knows when the age of your backup, and it compares it to this stale backup setting. This 3 comes from a global setting that I don't need to show you. It's just one of the settings in the back end of Watchful, in your back end and your account settings. And if you're doing, for instance, this was a monthly backup. Let's say we're doing a monthly backup on the 1st. In that case, the default of 3 days as the cutoff, the trigger for a stale backup warning, is ridiculous, right? Because if I'm only backing up monthly, clearly 3 days is not stale. In this case, probably 31 days or 32 days might be stale. So this way I can customize. I can have a default that covers, say, most of my sites are probably daily backups. But if I just have a brochure site that never gets updated and I only update it monthly, I could set this to 32 so that I'm not getting 27 days worth of stale backup warnings for something that actually isn't stale. And we'll see where this comes in. Just as a useful warning, knowing that your backups are stale is important. We all know that. Using that information is, and when to use it is, I think, just as important. And I want to revisit that later when we talk about updates. So just keep that in mind, that we have a stale backup setting that you can customize on a per site basis, and set, of course, a global setting for that. So that's the tools. That's basically the broad set of our tools we have. On the info side, there's lots of information you can have about your site, what plugins and extensions are installed for Joomla, what backups. If I click the backups, for an example, it shows me all the recent backups, and I can start a new backup if I want right from here. And let's see, I assume this is configured correctly. And this will let me do it. It's about as fast as the backend backup for Akiba. Neither one of those are nearly as fast as the backup would be if you were running it from the command line, for example, using Akiba's CLI. But that's what we use for, that was a manual backup, but the same process would be used if we had scheduled it, say, monthly or weekly. We can check the status of the different vulnerability scans. And this is a table of the different scans I've done and what the result was. So for example, this one has 6 malwares detected. That looks like the one I just ran a moment ago. And I can click this and look at the results. And I can also compare it over time and say, has this been getting better? Or if I've done a mitigation between my second last scan and the current one, have I improved my numbers and gotten it correctly? So from those areas, you get back to the results of this scan. And, there's 6 files to check. There's one inappropriate permission. You can see it listed there. It looks like I've got two modified core files. One's in the language and one's in the template. And I've got, this is a really useful area, what best practices are being applied. So we've got 19 items that were, looked like they were okay. We don't have another site installed. We don't have a known database table prefix, etc. These are not, you can get these on any website, of course, of safety issues for Joomla or safety checks. In this case, we found 4 things that are looking a little odd. Well, the caching looks disabled, or the gzip compression looks like it's disabled, things that people can then work on. So I think you're probably getting an idea now that as you go through Watchful, it gives you access to the different maintenance tasks you might need to perform, or the important information that might require action. So it continues like that. You can look at your Google Analytics. These sites are all behind HT password, basic authentication, so there's nothing to see there. Uptime is usually the same, but oh, there we go. This one actually is working fine. It's showing me what my uptime percentage is, my last 2 downtime events or changes. It went down and then it came up. So these are only events in the last 10 events. So yeah, we have included free uptime, of course, with Watchful. For paid accounts, free accounts, we do not have that, of course, but for the paid, we do. The activity logs, it's exactly what you think. All the things that have happened on your website. Some of them we might have done. Some of them you might have done directly on the website. And in this case, they're detecting a timestamp change because we did an upgrade. And so it's noting those things. Here you can see Admin Tools Professional has been updated. So this is a list of things that are going on your site. And normally people send those to their clients in a monthly report, and I'll show you that a little later.
Vic, does this work with the Joomla activity log thingy?
We don't do that currently. We've thought about bringing that in. Logging is can be a bit of a beast simply because how much do you want to include or not include? So maybe we'll circle back to that when I show you our log customizer for reports. Currently, it does not use Joomla's log manager. It was originally designed to essentially monitor the things that we monitor. So if we detect an update's been performed, we can add that to the logs. If we detect a timestamp change, we can add that to the logs. We can add anything in, of course. We haven't gone that route yet. Oddly or interestingly, we've not had, I don't think, one user request to bring in Joomla's activity logs or admin logs. I'm not sure why that is, but not a priority for our customers, I guess. At least not now.
Maybe not many people using it. You see, you got a question there from Renee in the chat as well.
Oh, thank you, Vic. Where's the site data stored? Yes, that's a great GDPR question. Our servers used to be in Chicago in the US. About 4 years ago, might be 5 now, we moved all our everything except data payment processing is now in Europe, either in Ireland or in Germany. So between those two, all our data is stored. It's at Amazon, so I still think there are probably some GDPR concerns, you might say, but it is in Europe. It's outside the US. The only thing we have stateside is basically the ability to charge your card or to run your PayPal. And I guess, yeah, PayPal's going to be on an American server for sure, if you're using PayPal to pay. Okay, good question. Thanks, Renee. And that's a question we get lots of for sure, especially with many customers in Germany and Netherlands who, really concerned, rightfully so, about GDPR. The final note here, this is actually a mini tool, but we've got it in this info section because it's about logs. You can add a quick note to the log. So I might say, change the secret key because I gave a demo. And this might be something I want my client to get in their report. And if I hit save, this should now show up in the logs. I've never done this, so let's see how it works. If I click activity logs, I should see a new, oh, there you go. So this is now in the logs. I can include custom information that my reports will include, and my clients can see those. And in fact, if I customize my reports to only include custom notes, the clients don't need to see any of this. I can just kind of give them a string of tasks that I might be doing on their website as I do them. And so they have a much more, if a client gets a report and it's got 10 pages of logs that look like this, are they reading it? I mean, definitely not, right? So it's good to have as we have clients who generate these kinds of reports and save the PDFs for their own background because we don't store this data forever. But things that go to clients, probably this is meaningless for most clients.
Is it does it email automatically, or is that possible? Or?
Yeah, it totally does, and you can even send it using your own SMTP server, and I'll show you that a little later. And then finally, we just had this overall highlights of the site: IP, URL, PHP, how many early warning audits we're performing. So these are checks that we perform on paid accounts 8 times a day, free accounts that goes once a day. Basically, it does a series of basic checks that might indicate that there's an intruder. A change in your domain, a change in a PHP or an IP address, all kinds of little things that we look at, changes in your template files, maybe because someone's trying to deface your site. It's not a comprehensive scan. It's really just, we call it an early warning audit. If someone's trying to break in, at least, many of the low level script kiddies and kind of the automated hacks that happen, they're looking to either steal your mail server or add a link to your homepage, right? That's kind of the, many of the attacks are like that. Right, so this just tells us when the last audit was and when the next one's coming. And you can put notes on your account. This might be, hey, don't update the site, or make sure you have a double backup, or whatever it is that someone might need to know when they're doing maintenance on this particular site. Again, you can put anything you want in the notes, depending on your preferences. So that's just I guess I went a little longer than I expected on just the basics there. That's the introduction to, this was primarily what Watchful was when it launched. And Before I move on, I'll just ask if folks have any questions on just kind of the basics of this part of the system. Yes. This is done by Watchful through that connector. So this is correct. So this is a pretty typical signature scanner. So it's looking for exact signatures in the files. And that's something that we can add to, but again, it's not something we've leaned into. And we haven't had a ton of requests for it. We've been working with Securi to, I hope we get there, but for them, it's Q3 2021 at the earliest, where we can actually integrate their full deep scan, which we can then automate and do daily. That's going to have a significant cost associated with it. So it's going to be a price increase for folks. So we haven't made the decision, but right now we're just trying to work with them to get the technology right. We don't want to be maintaining our own security company, but we definitely want options for people to add that if that suits their needs. Yeah, and no, I didn't. That was a great question. And just to note that most of our users are either novice or integrator level, and they're not. We generally, and that does not apply to everyone for sure. Most of our users, if they see, oh, there are these 10 potentially compromised files, would have a high anxiety level and not know what the next step was. And so we're also cognizant of not freaking customers out. So we know we have to approach that issue very carefully. And it's about target market, right? If you're targeting more technical people, the issue is then they probably don't need a manager because they're pretty technical. So we have right now we're fitting a certain agency size, a certain client type, and building most of our tools around that. So I'm going to show you a new feature that we launched 2 weeks ago, I think. I just started kind of sending personal emails out to every one of our customers, talking about it, letting them know it was coming out. This is we had a pricing model change a while back from plan-based, which is a typical 25 sites in your account or something like that, to more of the Amazon model, usage-based. If you have one site, you pay for one site. There's no extra. There's no waste. So basically what happens is we launch a new feature, and for every site that uses that feature, we have more costs at Amazon. So it's expensive for us to just give that away. So this is the first premium only feature. It's called the account dashboard. We call this the sites dashboard. This is the first dashboard we had. And then this is what we call the account dashboard. If you haven't used Watchful in a while, you probably don't recognize this. The idea is to aggregate the information from a lot of sites and help you get to the maintenance areas faster and get more done more quickly. So everything at Watchful is about saving time. And at the agency level, at least, that means saving money because you're paying someone to spend their time to do those tasks. So at the top level, we've got how many connected websites. You see we have 23 and we have 4 offline. So if I'm coming in here, that means 4 sites are not connected to Watchful properly. So I don't have any information on them. I'm blind on those 4 sites. So if I want to fix that, I just click that disconnected link. These are the 4 sites that are offline. And now I can individually dive in and fix issues that are preventing them from being connected properly. So that's a good example because the rest of the dashboard is set up in an extremely similar way. Here's the uptime. Okay, I've got 7 sites are down and 17 are up. This is a major issue if you're an agency. You don't ever want sites down, obviously. 11 are other. That means we don't know what their uptime status is, probably because they're not connected properly, for example, or other configuration issues. Website updates, clearly is only 1 site that's up to date. If I was to click the out-of-date sites, I get a list of 26 sites that need updating. And backups is another one. Okay, I have I have 11 stale backups, 11 sites with stale backups. There's I believe this is because I've got a filter. Let me just clear my filters out. Yeah, we've got a persistent filter so that if there's something you're working on, you don't always have to keep changing the filter when you come back. So hopefully I'll get 11. Let's keep in the filters. Save in settings. Well, I won't keep reviewing that bug if it's a bug or if it was just I hadn't saved the filters. But that would show you the sites that had stale backups, and then I could make those backups fresh, and then I could proceed to do any other updates like updating software. I think this is a really cool little feature. These are the top software updates, meaning these are the extensions that have the most sites that need to be updated. So in this case, I have 14 sites that need an update for Akiba. And if I click that, I think you can guess what happens. We have something called the bulk updater. It's got all 14 sites, and I can just go update all and get all just Akiba updated. And we didn't invent this screen. We had this screen for this bulk updater has been around for many years, but you could always filter the bulk updater depending on, you pick a specific extension. So let's say JCE or JCal Pro. Okay, these are the updates I need for JCal Pro. The account dashboard essentially counts all that information and presents it in a way and gets me to that filter very quickly so I can get done exactly what might be urgent for me. And you see here, there's a color code here. And if I hover over this, there's an error. It says one or more sites below has a stale backup. And you can probably guess it's this one with the yellow button. Okay, so this is where I mentioned earlier, because we're detecting and aware of the backup state of every site in real time, if I'm here on the screen as someone who's doing maintenance, this yellow means, hey, slow down, right? That's, when you're like at a traffic stop, yellow means slow. Slow down because there's something wrong here. I know with just a little bit of training, okay, I can update these, and I can just quickly click those through. And then this yellow one, I probably better hold off. I'll go update, and I'll circle back to that when my backups are fresh for that site, for example. Does that make sense? Okay. Remco's got a question that says, I have a lot of emails in the mornings with notifications that a number of sites are offline. If it's a concern of a few seconds or a minute, is it possible to raise the threshold? So this is a good question on uptime monitoring. Remco, I can tell you we have a solution coming for this, and the bug, or it's not a bug really, it's happening, but we're checking your site every minute. So even if a site has a momentary, if it can't detect that it's up for just a second, you can get more errors than you would like. So the answer is we're changing it to 5 minutes by default. And premium users will be able to then say if they want it sooner than that, how often they do uptime checks, or if they want it longer than that. We did a survey. Most people don't want even 5-minute uptime monitoring. They want more like 10 to 15 minutes at the quickest. So I think when uptime first started getting really popular, let's say 10 years ago, uptime monitoring as a standalone service, 1 minute was what everyone was trying to get. And then it's kind of just changed because maybe it's just reliability or just the way the attitudes have changed over the years. So we will be fixing that. Good question. Thank you.
If it was me, I wouldn't want an email for less than 5 minutes because it's fixed itself, but I probably want it logged still.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a good advancement. So log it, but don't notify me if it's more than every 5 minutes. So both those things are possible. So when we get there, Remco and Owen will definitely be able to do that. The other thing, we have emails that come out immediately. We're also going to be developing a more of a digest email, so you can control your emails a little better, and we'll be able to decide, should I get an immediate notification or should I put that in a digest, or maybe just the logs. So those are great options. Oh yeah, so we were just talking about the updates. Here are the links to the recent audits. Maybe I want to go in and check those. Same with uptime and downtime events. Here are the latest errors from the logs. And again, remember, we have a bunch of sites that are not connected. Right up here, we have these 4 sites. So they're throwing these errors, as you can see, over and over. So this is a quick way for me to look and see In a normal site that wasn't really just a bunch of demo sites, you would really not want many of these, at least not today, over and over. So this is brand new. We've got some plans for it, but we think it's going to be a really nice home base. And I think for some agencies, at least, that this account dashboard will replace the traditional sites dashboard that we spent a lot of time on earlier. So it's totally brand new. So I can't really say much more than that. But if you guys have any feedback or if you have any ideas, please drop them in the comments here, or certainly feel free to interrupt and throw in your 2 cents. So happy to hear it. We always like when we have new features, getting the feedback from our customers or even from third parties who are new to Watchful. We like to take that as much information in as we can. Okay, so those are the 2 main dashboards. Like I said, I think this will become once you've got more than one site in Watchful, this starts to become useful, especially past 5 sites. If you're using Watchful with 2 sites, that's great. There are some benefits. You're not going to save a lot of time, though. You're probably going to just be made aware of things that you might not have known about, and learn some tricks of the trade, learn some best practices. All those are positive things for especially beginner integrators or beginner agency owners or small business owners. But as you build sites, then they're very helpful. Thanks, Roland is asking me how Watchful works with RO CSVI. And I'll come to that let's go to it here right away, Roland. And before we do, I'll just say WJ is asking, can you exclude test sites from the account dashboard? Not currently. That's an interesting feature request. What you can do is simply disable them. So I haven't got the column posted here on the dashboard, but if you go to connection monitored, which is right here, I'm just going to put that in our dashboard for a minute. That's basically whether or not you are tracking the information on that site. You can disable sites that you're monitoring. Once this loads up here, it's loading a bunch of WordPress sites. Apologies. And then you can simply, in the monitor column, disable the monitoring of that site, which essentially excludes it from all the other things that are happening. So you can be connected, but you're not really paying much attention. So I hope that answers your question. I'm going to jump over to our settings area. So it's down here on the left. And there are various settings, like here's the stale backup threshold. Should I warn about stale backups before updating? Yes, I would love to do that. Thank you. Here's the send email settings for the reports. I'll circle back to this, but when we get there, I just won't come back to the screen. This is where you can set up a custom SMTP server. But in terms of ROSCSVI, updates that you can do in Watchful include everything that's on the JED, basically every free plugin, but also probably the top 90% of paid extensions. And so if you go in and look at these license keys, you can see that there's an RO section for ROCSVI, for example, where you can put those in. And I'm jumping out of that. I'm going to ask the moderators to blur those out when they make the video, please. Those are generously provided license codes by folks like Roland that we use for ongoing testing to make sure that the updates are working. But basically, you put your license codes in there, and that lets you have a very seamless Thank you. That lets you have a seamless update experience. So for example, in the updater, I can update OS Map Pro. Well, hopefully the key still works, because I've got an OS Map license key in the settings area I just showed you. And the same would be true for RO CSVI or any of other Roland's extensions. I think we support all yours now, don't we, Roland?
I think so.
Yeah, because that was a common key for all your stuff. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. So if you're doing auto updates, which is what we're about to get to, so it's a good segue. Thank you, Roland. If you're doing updates, so in this case, again, I was I was in the sites dashboard, and then I clicked the updater because I knew there were 6 updates, and then I can update these manually. I can click this update all if I want to process them. But what I tend to do for my sites is that I will enable auto update on all sites. So if I click this, it will look for all Regular Labs Advanced Module Manager and schedule them for auto updates. You can see it's processing the auto updates here. Okay. It shows me now that for this one site, Advanced Module Manager is going to auto update when the next update is available. And this comes up in the queue. So I'll leave that in your mind for a moment. We have an auto update manager here on the left. So anything you're doing with auto updates can be managed here. And you can see, of course, here's Regular Labs Advanced Module Manager. And I can disable that update. I can pause it, or I can disable it on all sites. So if I do that again, you'll see it start to process all of those sites so that they're not going to auto update. And you can see the button changes because they're not auto updating anymore. So that's an important part of our software manager. We also have core auto updates. This is definitely not something that Joomla users are doing a lot of. It is pretty common. Core auto updates on the WordPress side are pretty common. So this is more applicable, I think, on that side. But we do this for point updates, basically, and you can. It works the same way. You can add them all, pause them. Pausing is great because, for instance, you guys might remember some software came out a few months ago that was taking sites offline, and auto updates, if they're running, are going to cause those problems. Going to take your sites down. So people said, hey, we want to be able to pause them, but we don't want to have to go back and reconfigure and reselect all the sites that we've carefully selected which ones will auto update. So we created this pause and restart technology just so people could take a break if they wanted to, but not have to reconfigure anything. Just one button, they can put everything back to their original state. And so that's for the core, which are done in a slightly different process. So they're down here. And then, of course, for the plugins and extensions and things like that. We also have I think if you're doing auto updates, we have a very flexible rule builder, which this is designed to help give you confidence to do auto updates, because a lot of people don't, again, they're hesitant to do auto updates. So the most important one is probably the stale backup rule. So basically it says, when the backup is stale, don't auto update the Joomla core, so that it waits for you to have a stale backup so it won't trip you up. Similarly, I'm on vacation. Don't update any Joomla software at all on this date because I'm out of town. I don't want a site going down and have my clients bothering me when I'm, on the beach in Spain. So if I click the rule builder, basically you're creating exclusion rules. So I want to create a schedule. I only want to update my Joomla sites on Mondays to Fridays from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. because after 3 o'clock, if something goes wrong, I'm stuck in the office, and I also don't want to be there with the site down. Or beginning of the day, end of the day. If I click this save rule, I will only have auto updates happening when I'm in the office. Okay, and because Watchful will alert you if your site is down or if there are other major problems, you can probably get notified and fix them before your clients see what's happening and start ringing your phone. So you can see we've done quite a bit of technology in the auto updates. What's new, you asked about new features, Owen, is the pause and restart features. And auto updating core is completely new. It wasn't available until right now. In fact, it will be unavailable immediately after this call. We had a little permissions bug, but these two features will be for all our premium users here very, 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 very shortly. They're essentially they are 100% complete. We just haven't launched them yet. So, any questions or thoughts about auto updates? That was kind of my quick target, but the meeting's actually at 2:30. I was accounting for my long-windedness. So I'm okay unless you guys are done hearing about this. I think I'm just at the end here.
No, the only thing I wonder with an auto update like that, I guess it depends on how bad the sites crash, whether or not you can use Watchful again to rerun an update.
Yeah, so rerunning an update, if the update completed, but didn't say the database says, or the file, of course, in Joomla is files. If the file that you put on the server says that the update was complete or has the new version number, the Joomla site might think the update completed, but perhaps it didn't extract all the way, or all the files didn't get put in the right places, and now it's broken. You can't just reapply an update if Watchful or even if Joomla thinks the update is complete. So what you would do in that case is I would use this installer. Probably what I would do in this case is I would go to the site. That's a great. I would go to the site directly. Watchful is good when you're doing bulk things. When things get specific, probably it's just better to do that on the exact site. I don't think there's any service that 100% gets you away from ever going to your Joomla backend, and I don't think it's even desirable or possible. So in our case, if we let's say, well, here's a good example. Joomla will put out an update and the next day release another update. That's happened a number of occasions. You could do that here, but you could also just download the file and manually reinstall it by uploading it right here and just doing a bulk install instead of a bulk update. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but so is the Watchful client then not dependent whether or not Joomla is running?
Well, it is, because we have to connect to that plugin, correct?
Yeah, okay, so it's not a completely standalone file, the client.
Correct. If the site, the front end of the site could be offline and our connection could be fine, but for instance, if your Apache server crashes, we're not getting through, right? That's a good detail.
Well, because there was an Akiba backup, I think last month or so, and there were like 3 in 3 days.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean,
we had an issue.
Update.
Yeah, we had an issue where sites were going down, and it was we actually invented a bunch of pre-release testing stuff that we do at Watchful, and we don't even talk about publicly, but we do a lot of pre-testing now for all the core stuff, because if something's going to come down, probably it's more likely for a core update. And now with these auto updates, we just need people to have confidence that the updates are going to extract properly and essentially install properly. So in the last 2 years, we've heavily invested in that on the back end that folks never see, but trying again to get people more comfortable with auto updates or just updates in general.
Yeah, I agree. As long as the update runs fine, you'll get your trust, and people will use both the product and Joomla the same. I think it's been a Joomla problem itself as well years ago, where we had one release after another for every release that was coming out. And the last couple of years, it's been a lot more stable with all the updates.
It has been much more stable. Yes, I agree.
Yes.
The last thing I'll show you here, so I don't take up any more of your time, is our report builder. This was something that was ignored for many years, and then we spent the last 2 years really dialing in on reporting. Many of our clients use this tool to justify their care plan prices to their customers. And we had a very nice, I'm going to point you there so you guys can go look at it. We had a very nice success story that we published, success stories about Inspire. This is an American company, 5 full-time and like 3-4 contractors. And so if you go to our success stories, I definitely recommend this one to you. We were most interested because they use the Watchful API to make a portal for the clients. But the really interesting thing, I think, was that they use our report tool not only to justify their costs to their customers for their monthly care plans, but what they said was because the customer gets that report every month, regardless of how much detail or how little detail they want, they are top of mind when the customer wants a new project or an expansion on their existing project. And they found that really helpful for getting repeat business from existing customers. So even if you're not including like every log to your clients, it's still useful to have that touch point with them, especially now that you can have it from your own SMTP server. Basically, it looks like it comes directly from you with your branded attachment. So that's what I'll show you just now. So I'm going to make a new report here. And there's 2 things you can do. You can select a site, or this is helpful if you have clients with multiple sites with you, you can select a tag. So I can select everyone who's managed by, let's say, Jane. Okay, so that's going to be 2 or 3 different sites, or any other tag that you want. But anyway, I'll just select this one site for now. I'm going to select schedule an email. So now I can say I want this to go out monthly. on the first Monday of the month, right there. And I want it to go out at 8:10 because it looks like it wasn't scheduled if it's not exactly 8 o'clock. So this is a kind of, now I've got a monthly report going out. I can include my Google Analytics. I can compare that to the prior period. I can include my uptime if I want. And then here's the part I mentioned earlier about the site activity logs. If I click this, I have this option to customize. If I do nothing, it includes every log for that period, in this case, the last month. If I click this customize button, I can now really finely control what I include. So I'm going to go none for all of these. Okay, so now I can say, here are my notes only. I showed you that notes feature where you can add entries to the logs. Now I can have a very, very careful little report. Maybe I want to say when I have not new update available, because the client doesn't care that it was available. They only care if my update was applied. And that's here somewhere, plugin/extension installation, right? Plugin extension updated. And so you can pick the things that you want to show to your client so that they get the best information that's appropriate for what they need and for what you need. And your need is for them to feel like you're awesome and that you're doing a great job and that you deserve your $100 a month or your $30 a month or your $500 a month, whatever you charge. Personalization, you can give it a custom title and it's prepared by this top class agency. You can have your own cover image. I'll just pick that one. You can have various logos that you can pick. You can brand it. And then you can also personalize the email. So here's the email address you're going to send it to, the subject and the body. And so now you can say, oh, hey, Bill, here's the report for the last month. If you have any questions, give me a call. Here's my phone number. Here's my email address. Hope to hear from you soon, et cetera, et cetera. And here, if you've set up the SMTP option in the settings, then you can select your own SMTP account. And that's it. You save the report profile. You can give it a custom name if you like. And that's it. So now you've got this profile here, and you can you will also see on an active account the date it was last sent, so you know when it's going to your customers. One of the ideas we have for the dashboard, the account dashboard, is to have your upcoming reports, have those dates listed. Next report sending on May 1st, May 3rd, June 1st, June 2nd, you know, whatever you've got set up so that you can see very quickly when the reports are going out. I think I have got to all of the major items here for Watchful. There's lots of little details we could dig into, tags management, just log viewers, etc., SSO. But I think that kind of hits the high points. So I would happily answer your questions for the next 10 minutes or anything else you might have. Let me know.
I've got one, Vic.
Yeah.
Can you restore backups from here?
You can't restore backups from here. It's really a complicated issue. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment. Restoring backups from a remote destination is great if you're in control of the hosting environment, and we are not. So we don't have the host. We don't manage the backup. Those are all remote. So could it be done? Yes. Could it be done reliably? We're not so sure. So we haven't leaned into that. If and when we ever become a hosting company, I think that's when we plan on revisiting that. But right now, and especially because we support 4 or 5 different backup tools across Joomla and WordPress, and having a solution that fits all of those is also adds a layer of complexity that we're not prepared to jump into right now until we have. I think it would be, if we were to become a hosting company, we would have a whole separate standalone backup system that could easily be used to revert to another backup. Until then, I'm not sure that the payoff is worth it. I think for me, having built many websites over the years, I don't do a lot of agency work anymore, but I still do a little. If I'm restoring a site, I kind of want to be hands-on right there, making sure it's going well. It's not really something that I'm prepared. And I built this tool. Well, I own this tool. I didn't build most of Watchful, but I wouldn't really be prepared to, at least at this point, see that happening. Having another thing in between that might cause a problem. It's kind of like when I've found one site's not updating, let me go fix that site and get that sorted. I'll go to the site backend for that. We do have customers that come in and say, oh, I didn't want to visit my site backend. And we tell them that's not realistic. You are going to still have to manage your website from the tools that website provides. We're going to make the big, easy stuff. We're going to let you do that in bulk and do it quickly and do it reliably. Things that are niche or can't be made reliable are lower on our priority list. Is that a good answer? Okay. That's right. Yeah, let me address various sides of that. Certainly, it's been on our mind, and we've talked about even a Zapier integration would give people flexibility, if they wanted to do that. So when we built that tool to add custom notes to the logs, that's an API endpoint, so we can use that to insert information in a programmatic way. So as a developer, you could do that currently. You could use the Notes API to pull things down and write your own script that inserts that into the log. So you can do that now if you like. Hi, Phil. The issue becomes how much of that do you want in? Do you also then want billing? Like there's a lot of things that we could build kind of a whole agency system, but then maybe I like my FreshBooks or whatever billing system I'm using, right? Do I actually want Watchful data in my QuickBooks invoice? Maybe that's what I want instead. It could be, right? Depending on the agency you have, right? So do I want to give up all my, right? Right. Right, right. Yeah, I don't disagree. The reason I mentioned billing is people often bundle those bespoke hours with their updated invoice. But you're right, some people would definitely keep those things separate. So I think now that we've got our API endpoint for injecting data into the logs, the question for us is going to be, are enough people interested in that feature that we want to build it out? I don't think it's necessarily that complex. We also would like the Zapier integration, for example, if we just keep that example for a moment, so that I could disable all my notifications, and then I could send my notifications to Zapier, and I could filter the information, and only I could open a ticket if Watchful does this. Okay, open a ticket because I need my tracking system now I need my Trello to be updated so I can actually get these things sorted out. So we're really looking at the Zapier, right? Watchful needs a notification revamp, which is on our books, it's on our roadmap for this year. It's not necessarily trivial because what we've had to do is rewrite how we manage logs in general, because a lot of our notifications for transient things like, oh, something went down, we don't track that long term. That's a transient piece of information, really. It shows up in your monthly report and then should probably go away. But we've really do need to kind of revamp how we do our notifications for sure. So that is on deck. And I'm just reminding Phil that Roland and I, yes, we have a great working relationship when it comes to updating RO CSVI seamlessly and automatically, free and pro versions in Watchful. I thought I had another answer there related to, all of the decisions we make are, is this a 5% user interest feature, or is this a, so I would like to have it because I would use that feature. I hope other people would, but yeah, to be determined. It's a great idea, and we've been thinking along those lines. Probably the thing we'll build first is a Slack notification tool. Oh, that was the comment I wanted to make. Does anyone actually use browser notifications? I just feel like when I get that prompt, I always say, never stop asking. Like, there's just so much to be distracted by with those things. So
I used it for
it would be neat.
I use it for things that I think are worth it. I'd say like 95% no, and occasionally yes.
Yeah. Exactly, I agree.
It's really is to disguise it as a cookie notification, and everyone just accepts it.
The true marketer shows through. Well, I think that's me done and dusted, fellas. If you haven't used Watchful, there's a totally free version, doesn't expire, doesn't have all the bells and whistles necessarily, but it'll give you a good feel for how things work. So feel free to have that free account, keep it for as long as you like, delete it if you prefer. We've got a GDPR delete option in there. So yeah, check it out.
Did Roland just did Vic just say free account?
I did.
Sorry, I've missed your whole talk. I have to watch it on Garage recording. I just come fresh from a production meeting.
Those free accounts are only possible because of the sponsorship from ROCSVI.
That's right. But it is nice. We actually, there's a side interesting story here that we were off the JED for a while. We made a big kind of hullabaloo a few years back when we got back on the JED, and essentially there weren't really good rules for SaaS services to be on the JED. And so we spent quite a lot of resources going back and forth with the team, and credit to them, they were very helpful after, lots of discussions and back and forth. And I think I think as a result, if you're a SaaS service that, has a, piece of software that's of course involved, it's much easier now to be on there. And so I hope that's for anyone who might be developing or using SaaS services that also have a download component. Maybe that's too niche, but they definitely added some rules for people that have, just think like a caching plugin. Okay, I install a caching plugin, but it requires max CDN, right? That's an external service connecting to an extension you've installed on your Joomla site. There weren't good rules for that, so I was glad to see that evolve a little on the JED side. So props to them. There you go. All right, thanks, folks. If you have any other questions, you'll find me on Twitter at Vic Drover. I'll just put a link here in the text. And appreciate it if you came from Watchful because we sent you an email. Welcome and thank you very much. I'm sure the JUG London guys appreciate the extra eyeballs.
No, very, very interesting to see new faces. It's great. Well, I have genuinely just come from a production meeting.